How you doing, folks? You're watching Onward with Onrie Live. I'm your host, Onrie Kompan, and today I'm going to be talking about something that I don't typically talk about very much because I don't like dealing with it, just like anybody else would. What I'm going to be talking about today is dealing with losses. And as I've mentioned on Facebook, this last convention that I attended at Planet Comic-Con didn't quite pan out as I had hoped, and SOON SHIN did not sell out at the show. And though it's kind of disappointing that this occurred, there's not really much I can do about it. And I needed to move on, and I know that after I finished the show that I did the very best I could, and you can't always win every battle you go into. And I think that that's something that is important to discuss because I managed to get over this because I had a lot of good support. And I don't know if many people who are in this business or in any business that involves sales have much support, because sales is such a cutthroat thing. You know, take a real estate agent, for example. A real estate agent goes out and shows people homes, but he doesn't actually make money until the people he's showing the house to actually decide to buy. Sales is a really brutal thing. And a lot of people look at it and think that, you know, it's something that doesn't get, you know, much credit. You know, like it's just not a field that a lot of people typically tend to respect. But sales is how things move. And the same is, you know, absolutely true about SOON SHIN. You know, SOON SHIN, we don't have a presence in retail shops. Retail shops are scared of our book because it deals with Asian content and it's done by an independent creator. They don't know if they can sell it, and you know, I can't intercept that. You know, it's just something that I have to deal with. You know, every project has its shortcomings, and you know, this is definitely one of ours. You know, is the fact that we can't actually get into shop. So I have to go to conventions, and when I go to conventions I have to sell as many fucking books as I possibly can in order to keep production moving, in order to be able to continue living my dream. I mean, everybody looks at me and they think, oh yeah, Onrie's a sales guy. And yeah, I'm a sales guy, but I don't just sell anything. You know, some people think I'm like a used car salesman. I've never once sold a car in my entire life. I don't even know a goddamn thing about any car, you know. So I'm, you know, it's so far out of my realm. But when it comes to SOON SHIN, that's something I know. That's something I'm very passionate about. It's something I put a lot of time into, a lot of energy into, and it comes out when I'm selling it because I know how hard my team worked in order to get the book out there. I know how hard I had to work in order to get it out there. You know, completing your book is only half the battle. So taking it out there and trying to do your best with it is all you can possibly do. And when things don't pan out the way you planned for, look at the bright side of what's going on. You know, this weekend I stayed with a buddy of mine, Ted Sakura, who has an outstanding comic book out there called Apama, and he's got a new title called Tap Dance Killer, which you can now pre-order at through Diamond, and I believe it comes out in the beginning of April. Has a hot cover. It's been getting a lot of buzz, a lot of, you know, positive feedback. So anyway, Ted and I met a couple years ago, and you know, we got to know each other through the convention circuit over the years, and we decided that, you know, it would be more cost efficient for us to split a hotel together. And you know, he got to see me, you know, deal with the show day in and day out. And I mean, we were both pretty much, you know, and I got to see him too. I got to see what he was going through. But he kind of helped me along because, you know, he helped me put some things into perspective. So just to kind of give you guys a rough idea of how this convention, how things went over the course of the 3 days, I'll just kind of give you a breakdown of what I sold and how I was feeling after, you know, all this, after the day passed. So Friday started, and, you know, I was feeling a little bit nervous because it'd been 3 months since I did my last convention, and I kind of came close to having like a breakdown at the previous convention I was at, just because of, you know, the stress of doing so many of these shows. And I barely managed to hold myself together. And this time, you know, I kind of was worried about that, and that was hanging over my head because I was so focused on what I came there to do, which was to sell out of everything I brought. And the truth is you can never really be in control of that. You're not in control of whether or not you're going to sell out at a convention, because there's so many variables, like I've discussed, that can, prevent you from doing that. I won't get into that because it can always vary, depending on the show and depending on where you're located. All these things matter, but there's not much you can do about it other than, other than what you do with your time there. So, the first day of the show, I had to work really hard. I mean, I was on my feet for a good 9 hours, just pitching people. I barely took breaks. I think I didn't take a single bathroom break because of how things were going, and it was really tough. But at the end of the day, I sold 302 books, and I was happy with that. I was like, all right, cool. I didn't remember where I was the previous year, but I had a feeling that I had to work much harder for those sales than I did the previous year. And now I was kind of nervous about how, Saturday was going to go. And then Saturday came, and the morning was just very, very, very brutal for me. I mean, I was very behind on, I have kind of like a schedule for how things need to go, because when you do a convention, any convention, it's only open for a set amount of hours. Now, depending on what you're doing, if you're doing, if you're hand selling the product at a convention, you only have that set amount of time to do it. If, let's say, you're at a type of convention where you're selling more expensive items, like, say, a car or, something that costs a couple $1,000s, you're dealing with less transactions, but your connections are much more important that you make at the show, right? So, like, you want to collect business cards and everything. Me, I got to sell everything I bring with me. I got to get rid of the product. This is my only form of distribution. And so going into Saturday, and it's starting off worse than my Friday, was like, oh my God, what's going on here? And there was a point when I was just like ready to throw in the towel. I mean, it got so bad that I just felt like I'd let myself down. I'd let my family down, and I felt like I was done for. But I realized at that point that feeling sorry for myself wasn't going to fucking fix the situation, and getting out there was expensive, and I had to do with what I could do. So I got on my feet and I started fucking slinging books, and I started moving them, and I stopped worrying about how many books I had to move, and I just focused on doing what I love doing, which was interacting with my audience, turning them on to the series and being understanding of their situation. That's a really difficult thing to do. If someone said no to me this weekend, I took it without any, I took it with a grain of salt. I didn't get offended by anyone, because you can't get offended by people saying no to you. There are so many variables that affect people's decisions to buy things at these conventions. And particularly one of the things that many of the other vendors mentioned was that, a lot of the convention was held too early this year. In previous years it was held in the springtime, and in springtime people have more money because they receive their tax returns and they plan this convention, and suddenly they're spending more money. So, and I experienced that. I mean, I had people that I had sold the Warrior and Defender graphic novel to the year prior come up to me, and they were actually genuinely interested in buying Fallen Avenger. They saw that it was physically there, but they just didn't have the money to buy it. I couldn't get offended by this. Was I pissed about it? Sure, but I wasn't pissed at the audience. I was pissed at the fortune I had, which fucking sucked. But you can't get angry. And at that point, when I felt like it was too much for me, I just went and sat down for a couple minutes and just kind of reassessed what was going on. I mean, we're all human, and you don't want to push yourself to the point where you actually have a breakdown at a show and start taking it out on the customer, because you never know who your customer is and how they'll come back, and how just interacting with people in a negative way can come back and haunt you in really bad ways. I've always been as mindful as possible of that. I never want to push anybody to the point where they're ready to call security on me or anything like that, because I think that's too aggressive. That is not my sales method. My sales method is to get out there and present the book and put it in your hands. If you choose not to buy it, or you choose not to even look at it, that's on you. Every person who goes to conventions, they're there for themselves. They're not there for me. They're there to do what they want to do. So sometimes I'll pitch them, and then I'll offer them everything, right? And they go for the cheapest deal I have. I'm not offended by that. You're giving me business. It doesn't matter if you spend $10 with me or $60 with me. The point is that you walk away from my table feeling happy, feeling like you got a deal, feeling like you were respected. And I think that's a really important thing. I respect everybody who goes to, who I see on the convention floor, whether they're my neighbors, whether, they're convention attendees. It doesn't matter. You have to show respect for everyone, especially the show floor managers who are doing their best, success for them, So Saturday ended with me selling 390 books. And normally I'd be happy with that result. But the problem is that the previous year I had sold 100 more books on Saturday. This was one of my top performing shows. Oh, there we go, guys. Sorry, we got kind of cut off here with the internet. I apologize. Anyway, as I was by the end of Saturday, I sold nearly 700 books, and that's already like more than half of the inventory. I brought 1,100 books with me. I was already through, more than half of it. But there was no way I was going to sell 400 books on a Sunday. I just know how things go, and I knew at that point that I was going to sell out. We went out to dinner. He had a problem, and I think what the hell's going on here? All right, sorry about that, guys. Anyway, find the gift in your problem, and I managed to do that. I saw that, I was having more fun interacting with my audience than I was worrying about selling out, because at the end of the day, selling out doesn't fucking matter if you're not happy doing it, So I realized I'm not going to sell out, so I'll just go down, I'll sell whatever the fuck I can, and I'll get out of there. It doesn't matter. At this point, I was up ahead for the weekend. I sold 700 books, which means I paid for all of my expenses, and I also had paid my commission. So I was walking out of there with money. So Sunday was all about whatever I sold on Sunday, all went to the business. And that's a good feeling. It's like now I can, slowly start to save money and do stuff that will, allow me to invest in future projects or continue with SOON SHIN. Whatever I need to do with business money, it's always good to have it. So I just went down swinging on Sunday, and by Sunday afternoon it just died down, and that was it. And another thing I want to talk about with you guys is the energy that you experience when you're at these conventions. So on Sunday morning, I met this girl. She was exhibiting an artist alley as well, and she told me that she was dealing with depression, like she has a chemical imbalance, and she was telling me how difficult it was for her to get up and do this show. And depression is something that I believe exists, and I think can be greatly affected when you're at these conventions, because you have to look at yourself. Every human being is like, think of us like AA batteries. We're full of energy. And, it doesn't matter. There's positive energy and there's negative energy. And when you're at these conventions and you're meeting all these people and getting rejected constantly and having people ignore you, having people scoff at you, having people laugh at you, having people tell you that, you're a phony, it gets to you. It can have a negative effect on you. It doesn't fucking affect me because I believe in myself. I'm a big swinging motherfucking dick when I go to conventions, all right? I don't give a shit what the fuck you think of me. You don't like my book, that's your problem. But you know what? I worked really hard on it, and I'm going to get it in your hands. That's my philosophy. But a lot of people, they don't have that that same confidence, and that's not a problem. It's something that needs to be developed. I don't have a lot of confidence outside of comics either. If you ask me to, if you put a screwdriver and a hammer in my hands, I'm not going to know what the fuck I'm doing. But anyway, you know, she was telling me that she was dealing with depression, and you know, I told her, you know, I think you're really brave for being here, because it's not easy to be at these shows and put yourself out there like that and deal with this when you're normal. But when you're dealing with depression, it's even harder. And she was telling me, my goal for, you know, when I'm done with this show is to just go home and sleep. And my goal is to, you know, remember to eat once a day. And I said, that's fantastic. That's great. And actually, she made me realize that that was also a key to getting back up and dusting myself off. Like, I took the loss. I was not happy about that. You know, like, I sold less this year than I did last year, you know, and that can't be a habit that that starts now. So I took a cue from her. What I did was I came home and I immediately started getting myself back up and ready for the show, but not after, you know, resting, you know. So next week I have Emerald City Comic Con. I'm actually here at you know, the warehouse where I package up everything, and you know, as soon as I get off with you guys, I'm going to be, you know, spending most of my day here packaging up books and getting ready for Emerald City Comic Con, which is next week. And you know, going back to this girl, you know, I was really impressed with her because she managed to survive this show, and she came back by, and you know, she talked to me for a little bit, and you know, she felt a little bit more confident about everything because, you know, she told me, you know, I gave her a little bit of a boost, and she came in to try and give me a boost. But at that point, I was just like, you know, I'm done with this show. But, you know, I appreciated the fact that I got to meet her, and the lesson that she taught me, you know, was to just keep going at it. You know, you can only do your best. And, you know, that's what these shows are. I mean, you know, you're going to be tested when you go out to a convention. It's going to affect you mentally and physically, because whether you're sitting or standing, it takes a toll on you. And mentally, it is fucking with you at a tremendous rate. I mean, you know, you're dealing with large groups of people at one time. You're saying the same thing to them probably a couple hundred times each day. And you're getting rejected the majority of times you tell them about it, no matter how good you are. You know, I don't believe that there's a kind of salesman out there who can just, you know, put shit in your hands and charge you $5 for it. I don't believe that. I think the consumer is smart enough to know what they want and what they don't want. I think the consumer is also smart enough to know when they like a sales approach and when they don't. And, you know, I've been selling, you know, we've come close to selling 75,000 units at this point. So I kind of have a sense of, you know, how people think and how they react to things. And most important thing at the end of the day, guys, is that you take care of yourself, because if you're not taking care of yourself, you know, there's no way you can, you know, get out there and push your product. And the most important thing is don't beat yourself up when you lose, because it's just one battle. You know, like, I've said this before and I'll say it again. It takes more than one convention to, you know, make or break you. And this is just one convention. Next week, I got another show. It's going to be a completely different circumstance. It's going to be a completely different situation. And I'm shooting for a victory now. I'm starting a new streak, you know, right here. I'm going to come back, and I'm going to come back fucking hard. You know, in fact, I'm so determined that the books that I didn't sell at Planet Comic-Con, I'm going to start with them first, so I sell them first. Then I'll feel fucking better about myself, you know? And, you know, you want to have that you want to challenge yourself to do better, you know? I've always said this. Your biggest opponent when you go into the convention show floor is yourself. Anybody else who's jealous of you and wants to take you down, they're fighting their own battle with themselves. And until you start actually answering to them and actually giving into whatever the fuck they're trying to do to you or say about you, it's their thing, you know. And sometimes I get negative feedback from people, you know, like other exhibitors and stuff like that, you know, and I try and work with them. You know, I fortunately have not had a problem with other exhibitors for a long time, and haven't had problems with shows for a long time. And, you know, that's a good feeling. It means I've learned something, you know. But I think it's important to always make eye contact with the people who are with you at the show, be understanding of what they're going through, and try and help them out. You know, like, that was something I was doing too. It was kind of hard for traffic to kind of find its way down our aisle. So when I brought someone down the aisle, I always made sure to send them to my neighbor or to someone down the aisle. And then when things got busier, I obviously didn't do that anymore because everybody was, there was traffic flowing. So now everybody was looking at everybody's tables. A lot of people think I like to run out into the middle of an aisle and start pitching people. I absolutely dread it because, they should be coming to me. But sometimes a show floor is empty and you only have that time, like I was talking about, to sell everything, and there's only so much you can do. Depends on what's going on, and there are so many variables, so many things that are beyond our control that we can't do any better than our best. And that's something I'm going to part you guys with. In order to get over a loss, realize that if you did your best and you honestly went down swinging, you did not lose. Because there's the next battle, and you'll go there and you'll do a better job. You'll learn from it. Take as many lessons as you can from every loss. That's how you get better. And honestly, all the things I learn more from failure than I do from succeeding. And I love to succeed, and I learn from my successes too. But when you fail, it really forces you to step back and really think about what you're doing, and think about ways to improve. And that's all you can do. So if you're going to be at Emerald City next week, I wish you the best of luck. If you're exhibiting, if you're attending, I look forward to seeing you. We got new stuff out, and yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you guys next week. Hopefully sometime around this same time. But it looks like we had a lot of people tune in today, which I'm always very happy about. Thank you all so much for supporting the show. We're on our 11th episode now. I can't believe it. Time flies. I'm thinking about maybe taking this over to YouTube. So probably we got about 9 episodes left, and then Onward with Onrie Live is going to graduate on a YouTube channel, and I'll be talking a little bit more in depth with you guys about stuff that I'm learning from conventions. So it's just a continuation, but at least we can get out there to YouTube. So I'm looking forward to that. Anyway, I'll see you guys next week. Not sure what I'm going to talk about yet, but I'll figure it out as I go. So thanks for tuning in to victory.